Testing, twisting our host on that show. Bringing you Bigfoot news, yo-yo. Yeah. Watching in the woods, catching all the clues. Digging deep to bring you all the news. From sightings to footprints, it's all in the light. Stay tuned to Squatch-D, it's out of sight.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to the Bigfoot News for today's date, February 16th, 2024. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatchdetective Steve Kulls, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Bennett. How the hell are you, Chris?
Good to see you, man. I'm doing great. I hope you're doing the same. We're enjoying some nice weather. It's a little windy, and just a little bit of rain, but we're not below freezing or anything, and I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. And we had about an inch and a half of snow last night.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
But most of it melted away today, so
well, that's good. That's good.
Now it's all frozen. The wet stuff is now frozen because it's down below zero. In fact, I don't even. It's 27 degrees here now. So
and don't get me wrong. I'm not against having a little snow, but hey, we got spring just around the corner. I'm ready. I think everybody's ready for spring.
And boy, did we have a hell of a show Sunday night.
Oh my goodness! I tell you what. For me personally, that was one of the top shows I think we'd ever done because I personally enjoy listening to Dr. Meldrum, and I was thrilled at the opportunity to ask him questions about the things that would personally help me in my research. And that also, reminded me when he started talking about the technical details and terms and bone structure of the foot. That reminded me, yes, I do need to purchase his book, and I do need to go ahead, and I've read excerpts online, but I do need to purchase it, and I do need to understand exactly what he's talking about when he's discussing these specific bones. And
I'll tell you what, it's one of my number one books I have. I actually got it when it was in hardcover form. They're no longer in hardcover form.
Oh, shoot.
And I actually went to the library and they gave me one of those book binders.
Yeah.
The cover
jacket. Yeah.
So I got in a cover jacket.
Well,
and eventually, I got it signed by Dr. Jeff and everything. So really, really cool.
Well, I'm going to add his book to the collection, which I don't have much of a collection because I don't want to get myself biased based on other researchers' opinions. Okay.
Well, I do have a lot of books. I do have I have a book by each one of the Four Horsemen. I have Peter Burns' book. I have Dehinden's book, which he only wrote one book with Don Hunter. I've got a couple of John Green books. I've got one of the Grover Krantz books. And it's good to understand their framework or where they were coming from.
Right.
And to me, it was really great to hear some of their stories.
Yeah.
Not so much with Grover, but with like Renee and Peter and John, they had so many different stories,
right? And
some of them intersect, so you can see it from each point of view.
Well, I've read all the classic Bigfoot books that were available to check out from the local libraries, and I wouldn't say that I'm underread on Bigfoot, but I certainly I'm not going to say that I've read every new Bigfoot book that comes out except yours.
Thanks. But I have Meldon's book. I have Dr. Brian Sykes' book. I have Dr. Haskell Hart's book.
Right.
I have the Bluff Creek Project book. I have Bill Munn's book. So I have a lot of specific stuff that I'm very well versed and very well read on.
Right.
But anyway, let's do our roll call and then we can get on to the news. So first in today is Don Gamow Jr. from Sasquatch Research, Maine.
Don, welcome. Good to see you.
Next in was Relic Hominin, who said, "Have a great show. We'll catch it.
All right.
News tomorrow."
Relic Hominin, hello, welcome. We'll catch you on the replay, bud.
Yep, Relic. I hope you are having a decent night's sleep tonight, and we'll see you in the morning. Now I got to ask you, Relic, and you can leave it next time you give us a hello when you're going to go to sleep. In the morning, is it tea and biscuits, or is it coffee?
Mm.
Curious. I know you're from over the pond, so I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, they have different stuff for their breakfast too. You know, they have like
Well, they have coffee. They do have coffee. It's
oh
strong.
yeah.
I like it. It's really strong. It's like, but it's good. Okay, we got Walter Kroll in the house, one of our great members.
Walter.
OT in the house.
OT.
B Lynn, B, of course, B is here.
Hi, B.
Lester Taylor.
Lester.
There's a new name. We got Anita Helbachuk. And hello, Anita. Welcome to the show.
Anita.
Welcome.
Good to see you.
Of course, we got the infamous Mick in there in the house. And who else? We got Tom Connolly in the house. Little Kilroy was here.
Little Kilroy.
There's Anita Collier down there from Alabama.
Anita Collier, welcome.
Look, who else is in the house? Don Fuller, member for 8 months.
Wow.
Thank you, Don.
Good job, Don. Thank you, buddy.
And we got Angel Nolan in the house.
Angel.
DM Sabo in the house.
Welcome.
Danny Staten in the house. Good to see you, Danny.
Danny.
It's a greetings from South Carolina.
South
Greetings.
Carolina.
We've seen you here once in a while. Yep.
Love South Carolina.
Hey, we got Mary Roller back. Hey, Mary, hope all is well. I see life is going very nicely for you. Very happy for you.
Welcome.
Jeff D. Smith. Hello.
Jeff D. Welcome. Good to see you.
Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. It's John. Hello, sir.
Hey, John. Welcome.
And then we got Martin Stilts. Martin Stilts, Hominid Academia. I have not finished reading the internet yet. No. And please don't break the internet either. I've been accused of breaking the internet every once in a while. Look who it is. The Shadow in the house.
God, Shadow. What's going on, Jeff? Good to see you, bud.
Brian McMahon in the house.
Brian, welcome.
All right. I think we got everybody for now.
I think so. If we missed anybody, we apologize. The chat has been hopping. It has. I didn't get lost this time, though. That's good.
What do you say, folks? Are we ready for the news? Okay, so here we go. So let's go up. Discovering the Truth Behind Bigfoot, a presentation by Mike Fillion. But very interesting storyline in the story. So go ahead, Chris. That's your baby.
Okay, on Thursday, March 7th at 5:30 p.m., the Greenville Butler County Public Library will host a captivating presentation by Mike Fillion, a renowned Bigfoot investigator and YouTube personality. Fillion will share his experiences and insights gained from over 13 years of researching and tracking down North America's most iconic cryptid. Whether people know it as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Grassman, Skunk Ape, or Big Red Eye, Fillion has likely ventured into the wilderness in pursuit of the elusive creature. In 2011, I had my first Bigfoot encounter while I was camping in Florida, Fillion recounted. From there, my buddy and I started doing our own investigations, and that turned into full-time cryptozoology. Cryptozoology, a pseudo-science that studies... Let me start again. Cryptozoology, a pseudoscience that studies and searches for extinct, unknown, or legendary creatures whose existence is unsubstantiated, has become Fillion's passion and profession. He is the full-time lead investigator and producer of the show In the Shadow of Big Red Eye, where he showcases evidence and experiences from his extensive journey. You don't do this for the money. It's a passion. We just went to a horror conference, and I think we made our gas money back, Fillion remarked. That's true. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I've met so many great people along the way. During the presentation, Fillion will present compelling evidence collected by his team, spanning from the Florida swamps to the North Country of Maine. He will also share some of the challenges and encounters that come with Bigfooting. The event will include a Q&A session, giving attendees the opportunity to engage with Fillion directly. Additionally, he will be available for photographs and autographs, with light refreshments will be served. All right, we're going to have lemonade and cookies. Familia remains optimistic about the future of Bigfoot research, citing advancements in technology and its increased availability as promising signs. We found footprints, had rocks thrown, and recorded grunting sounds. We've even recorded audio that was analyzed and came back as outside the human vocal range, Familia shared. I always send any evidence to the experts. Good idea. For those eager to delve deeper into the world of Bigfoot research, Mike's YouTube channel, Sussex County Bigfoot, offers a wealth of content, including his docuseries Squatchables on how to get into Bigfooting. Followers can also stay updated on the team's expeditions and newest evidence by following their Facebook page, In the Shadow of Big Red Eye. Kevin Piercy, director of the Butler County Public Library, expressed his excitement for the program, recalling his own childhood fascination with Bigfoot. The South is a big Bigfoot area, with Evergreen being the Bigfoot capital of Alabama, Piercy said. When I grew up, everyone was always looking for Bigfoot. Don't miss this unique opportunity to explore the world of Bigfoot research with Mike Familia on March 7th at 5:30 p.m. at the Greenville Butler County Public Library. Now, that was a great article and a little bit of a recognition piece. I wanted to get that in, but there was one thing about that article that I didn't like. Is the author listed it as a cryptozoology as a pseudo-science, and I particularly took offense for that. Steve, where'd you go? Did I run you off? Did I put him to sleep?
Nope, sorry, I had to take care of the office assistant who was bothering me for something.
Okay. So. Yeah, I didn't think. I hope I didn't put you to sleep with that article. But
no,
yeah, it was good. It was well written. Other than the author got on to the term of pseudo-science, so yeah, that was a little bit uncalled for, in my opinion. But Familia is doing, I think, a good job, and he's not into this to make money because like he said, he just came back from a horror show or conference and basically made his gas money back. And if he's doing that good, he's lucky. As you well know, Steve.
Took a long time before I could say, hey, you know what, I actually made a little money on
right. And it's not like, you're receiving donations either. I understand that, but I don't know if everybody else does.
Hey, we're gonna throw out a little presser because I was there last year. Alabama Bigfoot Conference will be in Anniston, Alabama, June 7th and 8th.
Yay. All right. Alabama.
So Anita puts on a good time.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get on to that. You're right. Is Bigfoot a pseudoscience? That's the big question. Yeah. Well, like I was telling Chris and I always talk about the show beforehand. And is it a pseudoscience? Well, it is kind of a pseudoscience because scientists aren't really handling cryptozoology. But when scientists do use cryptozoology and look for animals that may exist, these are 7 species that used to be cryptids, and that's also yours, Chris.
Yeah. That leads us to our second article. It's was posted from the Indiana University in Bloomington. It says 7 species that used to be cryptids. Cryptozoologists study cryptids, creatures whose existence has yet to be or cannot entirely be proven. Bigfoot, Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. Yes, she has a name. The Jersey Devil, El Chupacabra, Mothman, and werewolves are just a few of the many creatures that are studied in the world of cryptozoology. But did you know that some real species we know about today were once considered cryptids? Number 1, the Komodo dragon. Until 1910, stories of a giant lizard on the island of Komodo in Indonesia were laughed at by any respectable scientist. However, when Lieutenant Stein van Hansbroek, hope I've got that right.
Flippin' Von Tippin.
Yeah, caught and killed one, things changed. Explorer W. Douglas Burden wasn't happy with just a dead specimen and decided to travel to the island to capture a live one. He returned to New York City with a few dead specimens and not one, but 2 live Komodo dragons. The dragons
New
were
York
put on-
City.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The dragons were put on display at the Bronx Zoo and inspired Marion C. Cooper to write the 1933 classic King Kong. How about that?
Yep.
How about that? We got King Kong from Komodo dragons, and cryptozoology.
One would have thought we would have gotten Godzilla from Komodo.
That's maybe they inspired Godzilla versus Kong later, But the second creature, though, that covered the Komodo dragon, the platypus. If you weren't familiar with a platypus, excuse me, and looked at the picture of one, it would be easy to believe it was a Photoshop of a duck, otter, and beaver all put together. Naturalists, I need to get my glasses. Naturalists, scientists, and most Europeans of the 18th century didn't believe such a creature could exist. The second governor of New South Wales, Captain John Hunter, sent a pelt and a sketch of a platypus to scientists of the European community in 1798, shortly after one was discovered. Zoologist, anatomist, ethologist, and physician Robert Knox was convinced it was a hoax and the pelt was made by an Asian taxidermist.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
He even convinced botanist and zoologist George Shaw, who at the time believed the platypus could be real. Yeah, I keep on. But had his doubts. To take scissors to the pelt to find stitches. Okay. Several years later, after many expeditions, the platypus was proven to be real. So there you go. That's the second animal, the platypus. And of course, I believe that the listing, if you just saw it, you'd never seen one before ever, you would just think, oh, somebody's photoshopped this together. This is fake.
Finding a trackway says platypus. The other red meat. Now, I think God must have been on a bender when he made the platypus. You know what? Let me put a mammal out there and give it some bird-like stuff, and we'll give it a little poison in its tail, a little reptile stuff.
You just take a duck and an otter and a beaver and maybe a venomous snake and stuff them all in a bag and shake it up, and then whatever comes out, you got a platypus.
That's right.
Yeah, that's another point too. The platypus are venomous.
Yes.
Venomous, not poisonous. Venomous. See? Anyway.
And
the third one. Let's go over here. Okapi. Yeah.
The okapi. Yes.
The okapi. Yeah. Also known as the forest giraffe. The okapi is a blend of zebra, donkey, deer, and antelope. Yet its closest genetic link is giraffes.
Yep.
Europeans in the 18th and 19th centuries called this animal the African unicorn. Of course, Africans knew the okapi existed since these animals inhabit the Ituri, I think that's right, forest in Central Africa because of opakis, excuse me, I think they misspelled that. Anyway, are rarely seen and extremely hard to find. They were classified as a cryptid for many years. In 1901, Sir Harry Johnson found an okapi skeleton and skin and sent it to the British Museum, where it was classified as a new species. So,
Chris,
there we go. Yeah.
The chat is still harping on the platypus.
Okay.
Jeff Thomas says hankering for a piece of key lime platypi. Right? But finding the trackway, those platypuses are expensive. Just look at their bill.
I hadn't been seeing these guys. As I pull the other page up, I can't see the chat. But
you know what? We need
me.
Ralph for that one. Ralph, come on in here.
Oh,
all right, there we go.
Oh, Ralph. But yeah, Well, I'm reading the story. I can't see the chat. So you guys are killing me. Oh, okay. Where were we? Where were we?
Well, we talked about the okapi, which is really cool because it is related to the giraffe.
Yeah.
The last time I saw one was a few years back at the Jacksonville Zoo. I
Right.
got within like 20 feet of one. They're really cool looking. They do kind of look zebra-ish,
Yeah.
but their head, if you think they are related to the giraffe, they do kind of look like a miniature giraffe almost.
Yeah.
And they do pick their heads up to eat, leaves.
Right. Yeah. In the photo, they got one eating, stripping some leaves off the tree branch there. So yeah, pretty cool. But the fourth animal that used to be was classified as a cryptid was the gorilla.
Yep.
Now this is interesting. I bet you didn't expect to see gorillas on this list. In fact, most European explorers thought that gorillas were monster-like. The first attributed sighting of a gorilla by a non-African was made in the 5th century BC by Greek explorer Hanno. Most scientists believe today Hanno was describing either chimpanzees or baboons from his account.
Little known fact that Hanno was a
Mhm.
distant relative to Benny Hanna.
Now, we don't have any confirmation of that. But, however, his interpreters called the creatures that he saw gorillae. Okay, interesting. Interesting, right? Another explorer, Andrew Battelle, recounted seeing human-like monsters. Forgive me, guys, I don't have glasses on. Visit his campfire every morning after he left for the day. Of course, he had to mention they didn't know how to put more wood on the fire to keep it going. Well, now that's fascinating. He would see these human-like monsters visit his campfire every morning after he left for the day. That means they were curious, but they had what fire was, but they evidently didn't have any knowledge of fire.
Right.
But anyway, yet gorillas remained cryptids until 1847 when Thomas Savage found gorilla bones in Liberia. He, alongside Harvard anatomist Jeffries Wyman, wrote a formal description of the new species, calling it gorilla. A decade later, anthropologist Paul du Chaillu, I guess that's French.
Du Chaillu.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm not really good at pronouncing French names, but or any names.
No, this sounds funny. Du Chaillu.
Paul du Chaillu.
Anyway, any relation to douche flute?
I don't know. Deuce Newton. Paul hunted live gorillas in order to obtain specimens to be analyzed. One gorilla species, the mountain gorilla, Gorilla Barangi, stayed a cryptid until 1902 when German Captain Robert von Beringe first identified one. Now that's interesting. Now that part on cryptids, yeah. The gorilla used to be a cryptid. Does that sound familiar to you, Steve? I mean,
yeah, just a little bit. And the gorilla Barangi, which is the mountain gorilla, wasn't discovered for years after. Not till 30 some plus years after the discovery of the lowland gorilla, the gorilla.
Right. Yep. And for all that time, the locals were saying, "Oh yeah, we've got these hairy human-like."
Chris, just look at the chat.
Dude that saw the first gorilla was bananas finding the trackway.
No. Look, we got Bink. Okay,
I'm not gonna say those.
Bink.
Yeah, they're killing me too, Jeff. Okay. Massengill's cousin. Anyway, number 5, giant squid. Many people still consider the giant squid to be a cryptid. Similar to most cryptids, which tend to live in habitats that are difficult for humans to find, giant squid live in the deep ocean. The first images of a giant squid were taken in 2004 by researchers in Japan. And in 2006, scientists from Japan's National Science Museum caught a live 24-foot female giant squid. Every few months, there's another news report of a dead squid washing ashore. Even though some people consider the giant squid to be a hoax, the scientific evidence says otherwise. So you still have people denying the giant squid exists.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But they do. I mean, 24 feet is a big haul.
Even
Okay,
birds in their belly.
The next one is the Bandagazoo. Who the hell thought that name up?
Bandagazoo. Thank you for the pronunciation there, Steve, because I would have never got it.
Bandagazoo.
Bandagazoo is one of the...
And let's not face, and let's not, with a little remembrance, let's remember his English cousin, the James Bandagazoo. Anyway.
The Bandagazoo is one of the ancestral spirits of the Moni people in Western Papua New Guinea. Its ties to Western Papua New Guinea mythology made the Bandagazoo a cryptid for decades. It wasn't until the 1980s that Tim Flannery, an Australian scientist, took the first picture of a Bandagazoo. Mr. Flannery identified the animal as a tree-dwelling marsupial that looked like a tiny man. It has black and white fur and even walks around on two legs. Unfortunately, the Bandagazoo is on the endangered species list. Well, how about that?
Wow. And of course, the last one was the kangaroo.
The kangaroo.
We can gloss over that.
Right.
I
don't think we need to cover the kangaroo. Everybody's seen a kangaroo. Right?
We're just going to hop on to the next topic. This is a show of bad puns today. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. I've got kangaroos just down the road here in Kentucky. You're probably not going to believe that. It's true. They're in a place called Kentucky Down Under. It's a local zoo that's got Australian wildlife.
You got the Kentucky Down Under area.
Yeah.
And then you have a guy walking around like Crocodile Dundee down there with a big old knife
of course.
and the hat. Of course. Hi, mates. All right.
Oh, man. So, where are we going there? What's next?
Oh, God. I forgot. Okay, the next one is the bias affects skeptics too. And in particular, I'm talking about today about Dr. Michael Shermer, who has a very long list of credentials. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, Masters of Experimental Psychology from California University, and he has a PhD in the history the history of science. So basically, he can tell you how science, came about, I suppose. He is the founding member of the Skeptic Society in 1992, and they published the Skeptic magazine, not to be confused with the Skeptical Inquirer, who is much, at least, I haven't read either magazine to tell you the truth, but I've had direct interactions with a couple of folks, Ben Radford, the managing editor of Skeptical Inquirer, Kenny Biddle, who's one of the writers for the Skeptical. We have great interactions.
Sure.
They have open minds. We have a little fun with it too.
Mm-hmm.
But, the bottom line is that they all make great points, but they don't seem to get abrasive about it.
Right.
What I did see, however, is in a tweet, he was talking about a book, says nearly everything in this book about Bigfoot could be said about UFOs and aliens. Hundreds of sightings for a year and for a century and still no physical evidence. Reports of sighting rise and fall, mostly depending on what happens to be on TV. Animal Planet is finding Bigfoot or, UAP videos online. Studied by folklorists, not scientists. Believers are mostly white male working class. Not impossible, but highly unlikely to be real after all this time and searching.
Why the race card, man? Why? Why?
So the Squatchdetective fought back a little bit. First of all, I said making generalized statements about phenomena such as this without stats and receipts is kind of hypocritical, don't you think? Last I checked, Finding Bigfoot was a 9-season show versus a 150-year mystery. and we see the rise of falls of anything in media reports.
Yeah.
And Chris and I talk about it. There's been controversies surrounding priests. There's been controversies surrounding different types of mass bangs. There's been, when the COVID word was in the news, it manifested the news. And the bottom line is that anytime the media reports in 20, 30 years ago, and this is also different, 20, 30 years ago, we were actually 20 years ago, it's the 90s, probably about 30 years ago, we weren't on a 24-hour news cycle. News was at 6 p.m., 6 or 7 a.m., noontime, and evening at 6 p.m., and then again at 11. Right. So you got your basically 4 news reports over the stretch of a day. And that's all you got. Nowadays, you get the 24-hour news cycle. You can go to any channel, get news. You can go to CNN, you can go to Fox, you can go to CNBC, MSNBC, CNBC. There's all kinds of platforms for 24-hour news cycles. Right. And from there, we see, I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, because my kids were being born in the early 90s, was the daycare scandals dealing with, assaulting children. Right. And it seemed like every day in the news you were hearing, oh, this daycare was accused of this, and that daycare was accused of this. And over here, we have a worker that was accused of this. Folks, that's been going on all the time. Yeah. It's being brought to our attention now. And yes, that may spawn somebody to say, hey, yeah, maybe. So when he makes a comment like that, a blanket statement, it's not unique to any event in the world, be it a Bigfoot sightings, UFO sightings, or even real world, what I call real world events. Yeah. Right. My next one was studied by folklorists. You're looking in the wrong places then. Even Dr. George Schaller wrote the introduction to Dr. Jeff Meldrum's book. Now, Dr. George Schaller was Jane Goodall's mentor. Mm. And even Jane Goodall says that, hey, is fascinated by the topic. Sure. Says, and then you have folks like Dr. Esteban Sarmiento, John, scientists like John Moyansinski, Kathy Strain. You have a lot of people in science in this. Alton Higgins. You have all these folks that are in science. Dr. Chris Whittier. So I can go on and on and on. Dr. Haskell Hart. Yeah, Dr. Hart. One, yeah. Right? And then the late Doctors Leroy Fish, Dr. John Bindernagel, and Dr. Grover Krantz. So that's in the past. So no, it's not studied. Not studied. His statement was so apt. Studied by folklorists, not scientists. Wrong. No evidence. No evidence like footprints analyzed by an anthropologist whose specialty is in foot anatomy. Right? That's evidence. You have that in front of you. You can touch it, feel it. You can even smell it and taste it if you'd like to.
Yeah, you can even read the published paper on the foot anatomy.
And I agree. Pictures of Muppets and porcupines fuel these folks. I agree, Lester. 1,000%. Yeah. And finally, studied by white working males. Wow. So skeptics are what? The ones who don't get their hands dirty? Because the skeptics are on the opposite side of us, right? Right. They sit at their desks all day long. And truthfully, I haven't seen a racial diversity in skeptics either. So why bring that up?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I don't think he should have even brought up the race card. That's just, totally
correct.
It don't work.
Correct.
Do you think Bigfoot is hiding behind a tree and says, I'm going to step out in front of this guy here because he's a white? No. They don't do that. No. Right. If they did do that, that would be
in fact, studied by white working males. I can probably name a half a dozen out of work white non-working males that are studying the topic.
Here it is. The Bigfoot are standing behind the tree. There's a couple of them there. Here comes a white guy. Should we step out and let him see us?
Well,
I don't know. Do you think he's got a job?
Hang on, pal. Hang on, pal. I think he may be I think he may be a white collar guy. Stay back.
Do you think he's got a job? Or do you think he's laid off?
You know, I forgot in that slideshow to include the movie that we were talking about. That looks like a hoot. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that maybe this week on the show. So this guy made that tweet, and I just whatever, and there's been no response to it, which is okay by me. But what it did do is it did cause a lot of people, because I did in my last post link the Dr. Jeff Meldrum show.
All right.
And I go, if you want to see a scientist talk about the Bigfoot mystery, here you go.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah. And boy, did he. That was a great show. And
learned so much.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get on to our final topic. And this topic is basically when bias affects your decisions. Here we go.
Just like Bigfooters will never accept why the LBL can't have Bigfoot in them. Like, it's impossible. It's 171 mile.
Kentucky Lake.
I'm sorry, 171 acre peninsula.
Kentucky Lake.
So it's actually 171,000 acres.
Yeah.
To be exact.
171,000.
So, and I find it curious for a guy who claims to be a Bigfooter is taking himself out of the equation and saying Bigfooters do not, So now he's taking himself out of the equation. He is no longer one of us, just by that statement alone. So just keep that in mind. So now my thing is he's no longer a Bigfooter like he claimed to be for a while. He's now a skeptic. So let's move on. And this is by no means a personal attack on Pat. This is attack on bias when somebody gets so fueled up to take a side on things, how wrong they can be. So Pat brings up that basically the way he did it, said, well, and actually he said 1.5 million. There's actually 1.6 million visitors per year to land between the lakes.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did was he divided that by the number of acres, which meant one visitor for every 0.11 acres. He said that entire area is covered by people. Mm-hmm. Notwithstanding that there may be areas, but we'll talk. Okay. That's his logic. That's his formula for determining that there is not enough people in land between the lakes. So here's the problem. The biggest working problem is the presumption that 1.6 million visitors are there year round.
Right.
They're not. That the areas in LBL are 100% usable. They are not. In fact, there's only 4 campgrounds in LBL. And let me make another mention of this. In LBL, they have a population of bear. They have a population of bobcat. They have a population of coyotes. And they even have an occasional feral hog, which they on their website has a reporting form. If you see a feral hog on LBL, please let us know. So that means there's a small population of even feral hog on the properties.
Yeah.
Right. The real workaround should be this, is that if you take 1.6 million visitors and you divide that by 365 days a year, because the 1.6 million aren't there every day.
No, they're not there at the same time.
Right. They're there per year. So you have to divide it by year. So now you have an average of 4,367 a day. And that's an average. Sometimes it's less. Sometimes it's more. Right. But if you take those 4,367 visitors, divide it by the acres. Yeah. Now, and again, we're not counting the fact of usable acres versus non-usable acres. Right. But you will see in my other stats how this makes sense. That's one person for every 39 acres. Right. Okay. That's a lot lot bigger, way bigger difference than the 0.11 acres that Pat came up with.
Yeah.
Right. That's where, I mean, when you get so blinded by something, that's where your logic can forget to 1.69. Oh, well, that can't be, No, you forgot to divide it by the days of the year, your average daily visitors per day.
Right.
Okay. Now, interesting fact is that in New York State, we have one person for every 35 acres. And don't forget, folks, we have the 6 million acres of Adirondack State Park.
Right.
And that's included dividing into those acres. Right. If we take the actual population in Adirondacks, and those statistics are really hard to find, but let's just take a general average. The state of Ohio, which is like the 4th or 5th highest sighting of Bigfoot reports in the country, according to the BFRO, only has one person for every 2.2 acres because it's a smaller state than New York. And guess what? You have cities like Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, Akron, a lot of population centers there.
Yeah.
Right? But just like the park is a microcosm of a state, there's very usable areas and there's areas that are not. Again, Land Between the Lakes has one person every 39 acres, well exceeds the limits of New York State. And now, Pat may argue that that's not the same. Well, why not? We know the populations of New York State, Ohio, and the next state I'm doing live there 365 days a year. That's not the daily visit. It's not saying, X million people visit the state every year. This is the population of the state.
Right.
Right. To determine a working population of an area, take the visitors, divide that visitors by 365, and then you'll get the daily population of the state.
Yeah, if you had mass visitors on one day, you would pretty much it would be another Woodstock. You destroy the local economy.
You got to understand that the warmer months, you're going to have a lot more people in that park. Sure. That's an average. It's not necessarily. Some days there may be 6,000 or 7,000. Other days there may be just a few hundred when it's cold.
Right.
So in Georgia, the great state of Georgia, that's home state. You do that same calculation. It's one person every 3.5 acres. And we know Georgia has Bigfoot sightings. We know Georgia has a lot of remote areas. Yeah. And look at that. 1.35 acres for every person.
One person every 3.5 acres. Yeah.
So that is, my takedown of that. Definitely biased. Absolutely. And for him to absolutely refuse to see or try to say, oh, that's not the same thing. It is the same thing. It's people in an area.
Yeah.
We just expanded it a little bit. And guess what? The bigger area, like you would think New York State, they would be, they'd be like one person every 40, 50 acres.
Right.
60 acres. No, there's not. Ohio, look at Ohio. One person per 3.3 acres. Yet you have Salt Fork State Park, and there's a bunch of other state parks as well in Ohio. Lots of game land there. It's because the populations and people gather in areas. And in Land Between the Lakes, they gather around the boat landings. They gather around the campsites. Yep. They gather around the hiking trails. But there's a lot of places there aren't hiking trails.
That's right.
Yeah. Look at the maps. Look at your hiking trail maps.
Yeah.
Right. And then again, how long are those visitors per day staying? Right. They may stay for a few hours and leave.
Right.
A lot of them aren't going to be staying there a full 24 hours and then leave. The next crew comes in, right?
Yeah.
Only a handful stay there for a few days.
Yeah. You're not going to get 1.6 million people all together at the same spot at the same day. It's not going to happen. Now,
at the same time either.
Yeah, at the same time. That would be my personal way I think that we could solve this Bigfoot mystery. especially if we could get to an area where we know there's been activity. If you could have a mass of people surround it, and everybody just hand in hand start moving in and close the circle, eventually, you're going to find what's within that circle.
Because his premise itself, to me, got me curious. I knew it was wrong because he was taking that entire amount of people per day and throw that down there and say, well, wait a minute. They're not living there. They only visit there. And, we're not looking at time. Let's take a look at the daily average visitors. Right. Then we can take a look at these areas where the community is that 365 days a year, and let's figure it out. And as it turned out, that it all falls that, hey, this area is a little more remote than New York State, even. If you think about it, per population density. Certainly not for Georgia. I was kind of shocked by Georgia, but then Georgia has Augusta and it has Atlanta, which is a huge city. And you have to account for those people the same way you have to account for those camping areas and those picnic areas and the people that visit the visitor center and the people that just stick to the trails.
Right.
What's your percentage of people that are going to go off trail?
That's right. That's the one big thing that I've noticed here locally. We've got the Mammoth Cave National Park, and they do have very nice improved trails, which most of them are even graveled for visitors to walk. And, it's got nice little signs, such and such trail, 1.5 mile round trip or whatever. And, 99% at least of the tourists that come in that go for a walk in the park, they take these trails. Very few are willing to go off trail, likely from fear of getting lost, not from fear of Bigfoot, but they stick to the marked trails.
I mean, you go into Guernsey County, Ohio, and, the area surrounding Salt Fork State Park, it is remote.
Yeah.
It is, like Logan, Ohio, middle of Hocking Hills there, it's like, here's this little plop. And then, there's not much, but then you're traveling. And then let's not forget, we forgot Dayton, Ohio, there's another big city. Yep. And it Jeff says, who is from Georgia or was from Georgia is, and yep, they're a Bigfooty in Augusta. Yep.
Yeah.
So yes, the stat doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. What it just did was disprove that this stat has any real correlation to the Bigfoot phenomenon, because when you look at a state like Ohio that has 2.2 acres,
right,
even New York at 35 acres, and you realize that there's one person for every 39 acres on any given day on average.
Right.
It makes no sense. And then you get into, how about New Jersey? All the sightings in the Pine Barrens. In fact, I had the New Jersey stat somewhere, and it turned out to be one person every half an acre.
Mm-hmm.
But New Jersey is the most population dense state in the union, for a lot of people that don't know that. You look at, Teaneck, New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey, Patterson, New Jersey, Paramus, Elizabeth, New Jersey, just towns and towns of people. You would think that there wouldn't be a square inch of the state, but yet there's places like not the Valley Forge, but the Monmouth National Park,
right,
and the Pine Barrens National Park. You have a lot of open land. The Poconos, and in fact, it even butts up to Pennsylvania on the Pocono side. So there's a lot of free land even in New Jersey that has a number less than this. And so,
and just like the whole tourist mentality team too.
There's Jay. Said, I knew it was my
Jay.
time to arrive. Well, Jay, if you missed it, just we'll recap for Jay because he was there. We just totally took apart the actual the PAT formula and going to a real formula, which again divides that 1.6,365,000 goes to basically an average daily average of 4,367. Then you divide that by the acreage, which is 171,000 acres, not 171 acres like he stated.
Right.
And you have one person every 39 acres. And then we have the results of different states, one person every 35 acres, Ohio, 1.2, blah, blah, blah.
Steve,
So,
is that, wait a minute, could you go back one slide, please?
Yep.
Is that Mr. Clippy?
That is Mr. Clippy. And for folks who don't remember Mr. Clippy was installed on the very first Microsoft Office program that you would call it up, and Mr. Clippy would be your little assistant there, and you can ask him questions and
I hadn't seen him for years.
Yep.
Oh man,
I gotta say, Mr. Clippy has been AWOL. So, but again,
I think when Pat did his math, I think he left out the deal to where he had to average that amount of visitors per day. You know, he didn't. He's got it. I mean, it seemed to me his math was 1.6 million people there.
Did you see what Jeff just posted over at Pine Island Research after that show?
I missed it.
Read it in the comments; you'll get a kick out of it. So I'm doing this very clinical.
Yeah, we don't want to go there, Jeff. But yeah, okay.
You know, and in fact, you know, the thing is Pat himself even once tried to tell me it was impossible for there to be sightings on the east side of Lake George. And that made no sense to me at all because he eventually recanted. He says, nope, I was wrong. So I'll give him credit there. Right. But there was a long argument we had, and I kind of backed away from him. Then eventually, like 2 weeks later, he said, no, I was wrong. Again, he says, well, I lived up there. He lived up there for a year. And he didn't really foray into the forest, I don't think, and he wasn't into the research back then. So, you know, but again, that whole area I've been in out of back roads and lost, and anybody like Jeff Thomas, Sasquatch Wizard of Adirondacks, Finding the Trackway, Jen can all tell you those areas are quite remote. So.
Yeah, Land Between the Lakes gets a lot of visitors every year, but I don't think in history they've ever had 1.6 million visitors all there at the same time. No.
I think Lester said, oh, don't forget there's Dogman there too. Well, we don't follow that Dogman mystery. I am not versed well enough in its history. Yeah. And I try to refrain now from commenting about anything Dogman because to me, I'm kind of very skeptical of it, but I haven't delved into it enough to really know the truth about it. So I'm not gonna pass judgment on it or make comment on it.
Exactly. But what we try to stick with is maybe the things that we have experienced that are similar. And so far, you know, I've not experienced anything with Dogman, and unless Steve had something happen today, he hasn't either.
Although I will say, I did look up my family tree and found a dog using it.
Oh man! Boom.
I know. That's another bad joke. Okay. Oh no! Look who's walking in. Sorry, Ralph. Sorry, Ralph. I'm sorry I let you down.
Oh man. But you know, hey, if we could get 1.6 million people in the same area at the same time to all join hands and form a circle around the area, that would be great. Everybody, okay, let's walk towards the center and we're going to find Bigfoot. Yeah, we're going to find it. You know, maybe if I was like, you know, some big rich guy like Elon Musk or something, maybe I could hire, you know, 1.5 million or 2 million people to come out and spend the day surrounding an area, and we'll just solve this Bigfoot mystery.
And LBL, we'll put him in LBL.
Yeah, how about that? Sure. Yeah, that'll work. Everybody form a circle, hold hands, and now walk towards the middle. You know.
You think we could make 1.6 million sandwiches?
I couldn't. No.
Because if we can make 1.6 million sandwiches and like a soft drink, 1.6 million soft drinks, I think we can get them just for a sandwich and a soft drink and hang out in the park all day. That's kind of a deal.
Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, I don't think I could do it, Steve. I don't think so. But it would be fun. That would solve the mystery. It would. Are there any Bigfoot in LVL? I don't know. We're going to find out today. 1.6 million people are going to
Now I'm
descend
going to be
on it.
working on the math equation. If you put 2 slices of ham per sandwich, how many packs of ham will we need to supply 1.6 million ham sandwiches?
1.6 million ham sandwiches.
And then we'd have to figure out the cheese too, and the loaves of bread.
Providing everybody eats one, though. I've never been a one sandwich guy.
Well, all they get is one. Hey, we're on a budget here.
Hey, man, I was raised up in the country. I'm Generation X. And when I stopped by the local country store and they fixed me a sandwich, which was usually ham and cheese loaf, the ham and cheese loaf was about that thick. It was about the same thickness as your slice of bread. Now, that was a sandwich.
Yes. Years ago, there used to be a place in Cohoes, New York, when I was a paramedic way back in the dark ages. And they made the Jawbreaker. And that sandwich was 2 slices of bread, but it was like this thick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of that was meat. And they called it the Jawbreaker. And it was $5.
Yeah. Couldn't open your mouth wide enough
to slice that roast beef on there, put it on rye, slap some Russian dressing on it. Bang, you got yourself a heck of a sandwich.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Generation
so anyway,
X, baby.
Next, what's next? So Sunday night, we're going to have on the Tall One's very own Brent Dill on, and we're going to be talking about the Gatewood Davis affair. And we're going to be talking about the use of the Todd Gatewood markup of the Patterson Gimlin film. We're going to be talking about, again, the Bigfoot massacre again, and who knows what's going to come out there. And I'll say this, if Mr. Gatewood, if you're out there and see this, drop me a line. I'm more than welcome to put you on and give you your speak. Same goes for MK, but there it is. The challenge is out there.
Open invitation.
Folks that are out there in chat, if they have a line to MK Davis or Todd Gatewood, tell them that they're more than welcome to come on and discuss their viewpoints.
Sure.
So,
Steve, have you seen the clock? Look at this.
That's why I was doing the round.
Yeah.
Now, another note. Let's do one more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then there was substitute, but it wasn't substitute where I got that sandwich from. It was Casey's Corner. That's where that was.
Substitute. Okay.
Yeah. There was a place in Cohoes called Substitute, but the place I was talking about was actually Casey's Corner. It was on the corner of Sargent Street and Central. So,
where I got my sandwiches was from Gladys at Lee Grand Market.
There you go. So, if anybody is noticing something on the channel, today, YouTube, I just found out today, I should say this, but YouTube now allows RSS podcasts to be done. So, the audio versions of the show that once they get moved over to Spotify and they propagate, will get sent over to the YouTube platform in the form of an audio version. So if you just want to listen to the show, put it on in the background, you can now do that on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
It's already, I want to welcome all the new subscribers as well. We got a bunch new since last week's show.
Yeah.
But anyway,
if you're on your phone,
I know I'm very critical of Bigfoot evidence a lot of times, but people forget that I am not only a believer in Bigfoot, but I have seen them twice. So, I know they're out there. So don't think when I go and debunk stuff that I'm a non-believer or a skeptic. I'm not. I'm an investigator. In every investigation, you get a clean slate. The pro, the con, it doesn't matter. I look at everything as if I have no bias at all. So
that's the way to do it.
Yep. So anyway, folks, that is the Bigfoot news for tonight. We will catch everybody Sunday night on Squatch-D TV live. Our guest tonight this week, Brent Dill, Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Everybody have a good couple of days. We love you all, and we'll catch you all next time. We'll see you in a bit. Later.